My 32-year-old female, husband, 34-year-old male, let's call him Caleb, has a very close relationship with his grandparents, Marie and Tom. They raised him and his siblings because his parents were absent. Obviously, Caleb sees them as his parental figures and loves them. So do I. They are wonderful, kind people, and I will forever be thankful to them for raising my husband so well and treating me with such love. Caleb's parents live in Germany, and me and Caleb live in Canada. We moved for my job and better quality of life for our children. 3-year-old female, 6-year-old male, 7-year-old female. The flight to visit them is around 9 hours, so visits are rare, once or twice every 2 years. Unfortunately, in the summer of 2023, Marie, Caleb's mom, got diagnosed with a tumor and started getting very sick. We were all devastated and went to spend the whole summer with her in Germany. Her condition remained stable-ish for the whole time, and we were hopeful we would have many more years with her. In October, she had a heart attack and was hospitalized. We thought it was the end. Our whole family and Caleb's brothers and sisters went to Germany, preparing to say our goodbye. Turns out she got better and was stable enough to go home. Of course, everyone was ecstatic. The same situation happened again this January and this March. Heart attack, hospitalized, it looked like it was over. But then again, she got better and we all went back home. Each time we buy tickets to Germany and back for our whole family, which costs about $5,000, $6,000, plus accommodations, plus having to take time off of work and school, which is difficult. Last week, my husband got a call that Marie had another heart attack. I told him he could go alone, but me and the kids would stay, and he would have to buy his own plane ticket. I am the main income earner. Reason is because I can't take more time off of work, and we can't afford to buy more plane tickets. I also find it difficult to say our heartfelt goodbyes every time, only to repeat it 2 months later. Caleb was outraged that I wouldn't let him visit his dying grandmother, calling me all kinds of names, saying I was setting a terrible example for our children. After hearing Marie was okay this time again as well, he calmed down a bit, but is giving me the cold shoulder and will refuse to talk to me or acknowledge my presence. I don't know what to do. We are comfortable, but can't afford to take plane trips every few months for who knows how long. And I am not keeping my husband away from his grandmother. I am just saying he has to pay for his own ticket if he wants to go. Am I the idiot? Edit. My husband and I had a big talk last night, and I essentially told him what the comments said. We as a family are not able to afford going to Germany every few months. I also told him that because I wanted him to be with his grandmother when she passed, I've decided to set aside money for him to visit her. However, this would cut into his hobby expenses. He likes to occasionally golf with friends, go to concerts, etc. A lot of people were confused with the financial situation. I've responded in the comments, but will repeat it here. I essentially bring in 95% of our money. My husband lost his job a few years ago due to medical reasons. We are hopeful he'll be able to return in a few years after more therapy. He is now a stay-at-home dad, but will do side gigs, mowing lawns, repairing things, etc. This is not to discredit him in the slightest. He works very hard and is an amazing father. When I said we were comfortable, I meant we had enough to spare a few $1,000s a year, which we already spent on the last visits. We can't afford him going to Germany for who knows how long without cutting into other expenses. My husband looked relieved and thanked me. He said he'll try to pick up some extra side jobs to help more financially. I know this is not a crazy update, but I want to thank everyone for their help. Hopefully Grandma will stop having heart attacks and live for a few more years. Now for a few comments before the update, and I am not keeping my husband away from his grandmother. I am just saying he has to pay for his own ticket if he wants to go. Will you support him to get a job so that he can get his own money? Will you take on more of the childcare so that he can afford to not rely on you? Because you can't benefit from his labor and then hold it over them that he doesn't have money. He does have money because he does unpaid labor that benefits you. You don't say neither of you had money. You don't say he had spent all his personal money. You said he doesn't work, so he doesn't have any money. I think he's probably realized you will use earning money to pull rank and get your way on a decision, refusing to buy his ticket when you know he can't afford to go if you don't cross the line. You're the idiot. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Apparently all the people here that think you're the jerk don't do math or are independently wealthy. You have spent over $20,000 in the last 9 months to go see his dying grandmother who keeps getting better. I don't blame you for deciding that he had to pay for his own ticket. I don't know the dynamics of your relationship other than you said he's a stay-at-home dad and does side jobs. But he cannot keep expecting to spend that much money to keep going to see his grandmother and say his goodbyes to her just for her to get better. He needs to start being realistic. Now for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last post and a lot has happened. First off, I want to thank you all for your support and advice on my previous post. It really helped me gain some perspective on the situation with my husband Caleb and his grandmother Marie. Unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse shortly after my last update. Marie had another heart attack, and this time she didn't recover. Caleb was devastated, and I felt terrible for not being more supportive of his desire to visit her. I know I had my reasons, but seeing him so broken up made me realize that I should have found a way to make it work. To make matters worse, I made a huge mistake that I deeply regret. In my previous post, I mentioned that Caleb had lost his job due to medical reasons, and that we were hopeful he'd be able to return to work after more therapy. Well, I let my frustration get the best of me, and during an argument with Caleb, I threw that in his face. I told him that if he had a real job, we wouldn't be in this financial situation, and he could have visited his grandmother whenever he wanted. As soon as the words left my mouth, I knew I had messed up. Caleb looked at me with such hurt and betrayal in his eyes. I tried to apologize, but the damage was done. He packed a bag and left, saying he needed some space. I was beside myself with guilt and worry. I tried calling and texting him, but he wouldn't respond. I even reached out to his siblings, but they were understandably cold towards me after what I had said. A few days later, I received a call from Caleb's brother. He informed me that Caleb had been in a car accident. He had been driving recklessly, likely due to his emotional state, and had crashed into a tree. He was in the hospital with severe injuries. I rushed to the hospital, my heart in my throat. When I saw Caleb lying there, hooked up to all those machines, I broke down. The doctor said he had a long road to recovery ahead of him, and there was a chance he might never walk again. As I sat by his bedside holding his hand, I couldn't help but think about how this was all my fault. If I hadn't been so stubborn and selfish, if I hadn't said those awful things to him, none of this would have happened. Looking back, I realized that Caleb's relationship with his grandparents was something I had always been a bit jealous of. Growing up, my own grandparents were distant and cold. I never had that special bond that Caleb had with Marie and Tom. I think a part of me resented the time and money he spent on them, even though I knew how much they meant to him. But now, seeing him like this, none of that matters anymore. All I want is for him to be okay, for us to have a chance to make things right. I know I have a long way to go to make up for my mistakes, but I'm determined to be there for Caleb every step of the way. I'll do whatever it takes to support him through his recovery and to rebuild the trust I so carelessly broke. Thank you for letting me share this update with you all. Writing it out has been therapeutic in a way, even if the ending is far from the happy one I had hoped for. I'll keep you posted on Caleb's progress. Take care. Your name. My half-sister spreads lies about my childhood, so I confront her at dinner and watch her world crumble as the truth comes out. I have a half-sister, Emily, who is a year younger than me. My mom and dad split custody of me while my dad had sole custody of her. My dad was kind of inept as a parent and basically tried to outsource Emily's emotional well-being to anyone he could. In between girlfriends, that was me whenever I was at his house. I hated Emily growing up. I hated being forced to play with her and take her everywhere. I hated my dad trying to get me to include her in everything. For my last 2 years of school, I chose to live with my dad full-time as my mom moved away, and I didn't want to change schools. I was meant to start boarding at school for those 2 years, but last minute my dad said I couldn't since it wasn't fair to Emily, basically him, because he didn't want to put up with her. This left me in the house full-time with Emily. Playing babysitter to her became so unbearable, I eventually ran away from home to live with my best friend. I lived with him until I finished school. After I left, I kind of cut Emily off. She has always resented me for this. She takes it out on me by constantly bad-mouthing me to relatives, telling exaggerated lies about me, my lifestyle, my financial situation, my job. I'm always having to correct people after the fact because of the weird stuff she says. I've never confronted her because I feel like this is her way to try and get my attention, and I don't want to engage. On Wednesday, me, my BFF, Emily, her boyfriend, and my dad and his girlfriend all had dinner. It was the first time we'd met Emily's boyfriend, and we were kind of catching him up on our lives. It came up that I'd left home as a teenager. Emily chimed in and said I'd left home so that I didn't have any rules, and basically alluded to me being a heavy partier, which isn't true. I said that that wasn't true. I left because Emily suffocated me, and my dad wouldn't do anything about it. My dad and I had a short back and forth about it, and then it was over. But Emily started crying and left the table. She and her boyfriend ended up leaving early. Later that night, Emily sent me a message digging me out for saying that in front of her boyfriend. I responded by digging her out for insinuating I had a substance issue. She said I could have refuted that without bringing up how much I hate her. Also denies that that was what she was getting at. I said she could have just avoided the whole conversation by not trying to lie about me with me sitting right there. The argument didn't get anywhere, so I just stopped replying. My dad is now getting it in the neck from her that I've ruined her relationship and am a giant bully. He thinks I probably shouldn't have said what I did and that I should have just said we had our differences and left it there. His girlfriend, however, thinks I'm in the right. Was it an move to choose now to tell the truth? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. His girlfriend, however, thinks I am in the right. His girlfriend has been shoved into your role and knows what you are talking about. Not the jerk. My partner has a really bad relationship with his brother. There is nothing his brother could say about him that would change how I feel about my partner, because my partner was pretty upfront about how bad things were. Your half-sister showed her butt as someone willing to lie about serious accusations. Not surprised her boyfriend bolted. Comment 2. Not the jerk. She has been telling lies about you for so long, it's easy for her to forget and do it with you sitting right there. Your dad is also a big part of this problem. He set the relationship to fail, then stepped back and let it happen. He still doesn't meditate for his children or try to stop her from lying. He just lets it go and it comes back to bite her, and she gets more venomous. This isn't your fault, and space is best. Good luck. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my update. It's been a wild couple of weeks since my last post. So a few days after the dinner incident, Emily showed up at my place unannounced. She was a mess, crying and saying her boyfriend had broken up with her. Apparently, he'd been pretty shaken by the revelation of our rocky past and felt like she'd been dishonest with him. I felt bad, but also a bit vindicated. I mean, her lies had finally caught up with her. We ended up having a long overdue talk. Emily confessed that she'd always felt abandoned by me and had resented me for leaving her alone with our dad. She said she knew it was wrong to spread rumors about me, but it was her way of getting back at me. I tried to explain my side of things, how suffocated I'd felt, and how I needed to get away from my own well-being. It was a tough conversation, but I think we both needed to get it all out in the open. In the days that followed, I found myself reflecting a lot on our childhood. I remembered how, even though I resented having to take care of Emily, there were moments when we actually had fun together. Like the time we built a fort in the living room and stayed up all night telling ghost stories. Or when I taught her how to ride a bike, and she was so proud of herself. I realized that despite everything, we did have some good times. Meanwhile, my dad was still trying to play peacemaker. He invited us both over for dinner, hoping we could smooth things over. It was awkward at first, but as we started reminiscing about old times, the tension began to ease. We even managed to laugh about some of the silly fights we had as kids. As for Emily's ex-boyfriend, I heard through the grapevine that he'd started dating someone new. I felt a twinge of guilt, wondering if I'd played a role in their breakup. But at the same time, I knew that their relationship had been built on a foundation of lies. It was bound to crumble sooner or later. In the end, I think this whole experience has been a wake-up call for both Emily and me. We've realized that we can't keep holding on to the past and that we need to find a way to move forward. It's not going to be easy, but I'm hopeful that we can slowly start to rebuild our relationship. Of course, there are still some lingering issues to work through, like the fact that Emily still hasn't really apologized for all the rumors she spread about me. And I know I need to work on being more understanding of her feelings and not just dismissing her as an annoyance. But overall, I feel like we're on the right track. We've started texting more and even made plans to grab coffee next week. It's a small step, but it's progress. Anyway, that's where things stand now. It's been pretty hard on us of emotions, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to finally confront some of these long-buried issues. Thanks for listening and for all your support. It means a lot. My sister-in-law's fiance spews hateful comments, so I expose his true colors at their wedding and watch their perfect day crumble. I have been with my wife, Elle, for 11 years now. We have 2 kids together, a 2-year-old girl and a 6-month-old son. My sister-in-law, M, was beyond excited when she found out we were expecting and wanted to be very involved in our kids' lives as the cool aunt, because she herself believed she would never have children. Last year, M asked our group of friends, if you were talking to someone and they threw up several red flags in their personality, but they treated you nicely, would you continue to pursue that relationship? We all, of course, said no. Red flags exist for a reason. But then a week later, she introduces my family to her new boyfriend, R, and his daughter, S. Before doing so, M made a note to tell me that R was conservative, which I thought was odd. We are all very progressive, and M more so than the rest of us. So I thought it was a bit weird, but that's okay. R was quiet throughout the dinner, and after that, we didn't see him for a while, though M continued to be very involved in our lives. A few months later, we went on a family vacation, and R tagged along. On the very first morning, I was sitting on the floor playing with our daughter, while a children's show with a black man as the main character played on the TV. He walked over to M and whispered something to her, and she got up and turned off the TV. When I asked why, she said that R didn't want S, a 7-year-old, watching it. Okay, whatever. It was background noise anyway. Then when she went back to him, I heard him say, "That freaking queer," to her, referring to the main character. I was appalled. M is bi, so I was astounded that he would say that to her, and even more so that she laughed after he did. We parted ways for the day, but that night, we all met back up for dinner. I wasn't feeling well, so I left early, but later that night, my wife told me that he made several discriminatory comments about the black family seated next to us with my daughter right there at the table. At that point, I'd had it. I did not want this person around my kids. When the trip was over, I told M that I thought she was making a huge mistake with this guy, that he wasn't conservative, he was hateful and discriminatory, and I don't want my kids growing up thinking it was okay to hate people because they're different. She got very upset with me because this meant he wouldn't be allowed at family holidays if my children were there, and that if I just spent a little more time with him, I would see he wasn't all that bad. I refused. This caused a massive argument between L and M, and now M said that if R wasn't allowed around my kids, she wouldn't be a part of our lives any longer. To make matters worse, she's now pregnant after believing herself infertile, and she and R are getting married next weekend. Now my wife wants us to go to couples counseling because she's convinced that I'm overreacting about this. If she wants us to go to counseling, that's fine with me, but I don't think that I've done anything wrong. Am I the idiot now? For a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I just want to say thank you all for your comments. My wife and I have been reading them together, and it was her idea to make the post. I truly do feel bad for my sister-in-law. We all have a complicated history, but before this guy showed up, she was one of my best friends. It hurts like hell to cut her out of my life, and I really don't want to go that route. It was her choice to step away from us because we didn't accept him. We are still going to go to couples therapy because I do believe that therapy is a great outlet and it's needed. But hearing these comments from total internet strangers has given my wife the wake-up call she needed. Thanks again, Reddit. You never let me down. Comment 2. Not the idiot. The fact that your sister-in-law is making excuses for this man's disgusting behavior is bad enough, but this part, now my wife wants us to go to couples counseling because she's convinced that I'm overreacting about this. Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I'd be asking your wife some questions about why she's trying to make excuses for this man and why she thinks that your very reasonable desire to not have your kids around a bigot means that you need counseling. Now for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a month since my last post, and I wanted to give you all an update on what's been going on. Thanks for reading. So a lot has happened in the past few weeks. M and R got married, and despite my reservations, L convinced me to go to the wedding. It was a small ceremony, and I tried my best to be civil for M's sake. During the reception, I overheard R talking to one of his friends about how he couldn't wait for Em to quit her job and stay home with the baby. It rubbed me the wrong way, but I didn't say anything. A few days after the wedding, Elle and I started couples counseling. During our first session, the therapist asked us to talk about our childhoods. I shared how my dad was always working and never really present, which made me want to be a more involved father. Elle talked about growing up with Em and how close they've always been. It was eye-opening to hear her perspective on the situation. Meanwhile, Em started showing more and more, and she kept trying to get us to spend time with her and R. I still had my reservations, but Elle thought it would be good for the kids to see their aunt. So we agreed to a family dinner at their place. When we arrived, I noticed that R had put up a Confederate flag in their living room. I was shocked and angry, but I didn't want to cause a scene in front of the kids. During dinner, R made a comment about how he couldn't wait to teach his son how to hunt and be a real man. I couldn't hold my tongue any longer and told him that there's more to being a man than hunting and that I wanted my son to grow up respecting everyone, regardless of their differences. R got defensive and said that he was just joking around. Em tried to change the subject, but the tension was clear. On the drive home, Elle and I got into a huge argument. She accused me of being too hard on R and not giving him a chance. I told her that I couldn't ignore his behavior and that I didn't want our kids around that kind of influence. We barely spoke for the rest of the night. A few days later, I got a call from my mom. She told me that she had been diagnosed with cancer and that she needed me to come home and help take care of her. I was devastated. I knew I needed to be there for her, but I also didn't want to leave Elle and the kids. When I told Elle about my mom's diagnosis, she was supportive and said that we would figure it out together. That's when I found out the secret that changed everything. While I was going through some old boxes in the garage looking for some of my mom's things, I found a letter that Em had written to Elle years ago. In the letter, Em confessed that she had always been in love with Elle and that she was jealous of our relationship. She said that she had tried to move on, and that's why she was with R, but that she still had feelings for Elle. I was shocked and hurt. I didn't know what to do. I knew I needed to talk to Elle about it, but I was afraid of what it would mean for our marriage. I was also worried about how it would affect Em and her unborn child. In the end, I decided to talk to Elle about the letter. It was a difficult conversation, but we both agreed that we needed to be honest with each other. Elle said that she had always suspected Em's feelings for her, but that she had never reciprocated them. She reassured me that she loved me and that nothing would change that. We decided not to tell Em about the letter, at least not until after the baby was born. We didn't want to add any more stress to her life. But it's been weighing heavily on me, and I don't know how much longer I can keep this secret. So that's where things stand now. I'm trying to be there for my mom while also navigating this complicated situation with Em and R. It's not easy, but I know that Elle and I will get through it together. Thanks for listening, everyone. It feels good to get this off my chest. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.